construction site is a busy place, with many trades working together but not necessarily paying attention to you. There are policies to follow and equipment to use that make your workday safer. Sometimes these will be posted, and sometimes you may need to find answers with the information made available to you. There have been accidents as long as there has been construction. The good news is that since President Nixon signed the Occupational Safety and Health Act into law in 1970, there has been a steady improvement in workplace safety. So what can you do to make sure you don't become a statistic? It begins with the basics, starting with personal protective equipment, or PPE. Hard hats, safety glasses, and gloves are required, as well as sturdy work clothes and work boots. Additional safety supplies are available. For example, you may need hearing protection when you are using powder-actuated tools, respirators for coring concrete, and if you need to work on energized circuits, the necessary tools and clothing are available. Good housekeeping practices, including adequate sanitary facilities, lighting, ventilation, first aid supplies, and portable fire extinguishers are always part of a well-run job. Training is important and will not end with this orientation. Every worksite will conduct a Friday toolbox talk on relevant safety-related topics, and additional training will be held for less common tasks, such as confined space entry. You will spend every day using tools to make you more effective, and you should inspect every tool before use. Make sure the tools are in good condition, are UL listed, and are safe to use. Know which meter is needed to test a circuit, and know how to use it. Check power tools and cord sets for grounding plugs and exposed conductors. Any equipment that is discovered to be unsafe must be tagged out of service and returned to the warehouse for repair or replacement. If you are using portable generators, be certain to keep fuel in approved containers and store this in any flammable or combustible liquid in a flammable storage locker. Ladders are another piece of equipment you may use every day. These can be job-built ladders, step ladders, or extension ladders. You will never see a metal ladder on our job sites. Only wood or fiberglass non-conductive ladders are to be used. Ladders should be inspected prior to use and always returned or destroyed if broken. Never attempt to repair a ladder on your job. Extension ladders should be tied off and should extend at least 3 feet above the upper level for easy access. Remember to fully open a stepladder to use it. Do not lean a stepladder against a wall for use. And never use the top 2 steps. If you need a taller ladder, ask for one. You may also use scaffolds or lifts to reach your work. Scaffolds will be assembled by a vendor for your use if they need to be higher than 1 tier. Every scaffold needs to be checked before you use it for guardrails, a full secure deck, and access by an integral ladder or portable ladder. Never climb a scaffold frame. Be certain that connections are secure and rollers, if existing, are locked. Powered lifts must be used per the manufacturer's instructions. Be sure your lift is in good condition with complete guardrails and chains and no hydraulic fluid leaks. Always know the load capacity of your lift and always use lifts on a level, secure surface, moving only when in a lowered position. Stay on the lift platform, never climb the guardrails. As you work at height, you must be aware of the potential for falls. You cannot be exposed to a fall of greater than 6 feet without either being protected by a guardrail system, a warning line, or personal fall arrest system. Guardrails must be secure and have a top, mid-rail, and toe board. Warning lines will be flagged and at least 10 feet from a leading edge. If you work outside these systems, or where they do not exist, you must wear a personal fall arrest system. This will usually consist of a full body harness with web lanyard or retractable lanyard, yo-yo, although other equipment is available for unusual situations. Be certain to connect to a secure structure or device such as a beamer that is designed for fall protection. Always check your fall arrest equipment before use. Look for torn or worn straps, belts, locking devices, and rings. Lanyards will have a deceleration device and secure directly to the harness ring between your shoulder blades. Remember that yo-yos are never used with a lanyard. Connect them directly to the harness ring. All straps and belts should be adjusted to fit you snugly to make sure the harness protects you in case of a fall. Harness use is also required in buckets or articulating booms. If you are using this type of equipment, be sure to check the operation of the bucket before working and ensure that you are operating on a secure, level surface. Often we may use a boom with a material handler for lifts or setting poles. You cannot operate this without a hoisting license from the Massachusetts Department of Public Safety, and signal persons and riggers must be trained in these functions. OSHA requires a written plan for a lift, naming the persons involved, their tasks, and certification. If you are working with a crane on site, be certain to recognize the swing area of the crane and make sure you stay clear of the swing radius of the cab, which should be guarded. Especially recognize the hazard of working close to power lines and maintain at least a 10-foot clearance from them to prevent an electrocution risk. If needed, contact the power company to de-energize lines on the day of a lift. Materials handling on work sites or in the warehouse are a source of injuries. Be sure to use dollies and forklifts for heavy loads whenever possible. Forklift operators must be licensed by a qualified trainer. If you must lift by hand, don't bend over the load, crouch, and use your leg muscles. Ask for help for awkward loads. We will be providing temporary power and lighting at many of our work sites. All construction sites are required to connect power tools through a GFCI protected circuit. This will be by spider boxes or job-built power stations, which we must maintain in good condition. Be sure to inspect and test these circuits monthly. There will be a test log or tag system to record these tests. When working from existing power, be sure to use a pigtail with a GFCI device. You should also inspect and test these before use, making certain that the plugs are in good condition. In most cases, we must de-energize anytime we work on existing electrical circuits. Adding breakers or punching a new conduit into a switchboard cannot be done live except in very limited circumstances. Occasionally, we will test and inspect energized gear in accordance with NFPA 70E, electrical safety in the workplace. This requires using tools and special clothing to protect you from electrical shock, arc flash, and arc blast. This will only be done by journeymen trained for the task and after discussing the job with project management and the safety office. Apprentices will never be asked to perform energized work. When you do de-energize a circuit, be certain to follow proper lockout/tagout procedures. Use the correct breaker lock device for the equipment and affix a lock and ID tag to enable others to contact you. Usually a foreman will hold the key for any lockout/tagout done on a job. Some subcontractors will also place a lock on a circuit if they are responsible for or also working on the equipment. You may need to work in excavations or trenches, for instance when running duct bank for new construction. Excavations will be by a qualified sub under the general contractor. If an excavation exceeds 4 feet in depth, provisions must be taken to prevent collapse, such as stepping, benching, or using a trench box. Over 5 feet in depth, ladders or other access need to be provided, and fall protection must exist once a 6-foot depth has been reached. A hazard communication program exists to protect you from hazardous chemicals in the workplace. Every worksite must have the Material Safety Data Sheet, or MSDS, for any chemical used or stored on site from every subcontractor. The MSDS includes identifying information, hazards to watch for, recommended protection to wear, and even information for fire prevention for the material. You can get this information from the GC or sub on site. Environmental health issues may include chemicals in solvents or paints, silica from coring operations, welding fumes, or even asbestos exposure. Always attempt to lessen exposure to fumes or dusts with ventilation, wet methods, or vacuum systems. If these solutions don't work, a respirator can be used to protect you. This can be a simple dust mask or a half or full face elastomeric respirator. The type of respirator will depend on the hazard, and the type of cartridge you will use will depend on this too. It is important to know the hazard to choose the appropriate level of protection. Anyone using a respirator must be medically cleared and fit tested. Do not use a respirator without contacting the safety office for assistance. We occasionally work in manholes or vaults, which are considered to be confined spaces. This work must be thoroughly planned to perform it safely, and the procedures and equipment needed require additional training. You will need a 4-gas meter at a minimum, and usually a means for ventilation and rescue, and you will need to know how to work under the permit system we use here. This is a lot of information, and these are just the basics. More information is in the company safety manual for each of these topics. Please ask your foreman if you have any questions regarding job safety. Thank you.